This is Tramiel from Macon, Georgia, and you're watching the one, the only Cardfight Empire.
Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. Today we're going to be covering, or I should say tonight, because I woke up at 5 a.m. thinking that this would be like a quick knockout on area, and I ended up spending 17 hours on making this Pale Moon GB8 deck, and then I still didn't get it to the perfection that I wanted it to be, but I just kind of accepted that it wasn't going to get there for the sake of getting you guys your video today. But so today we're going to be talking about the Pale Moon GB8 deck. We tried literally everything in Pale Moon, like everything from the defensive loop Legion deck to Harri to Silverthorn, just to see if anything will work better. And we had to go back to Harri because it was the best thing working, but not the best thing that I wanted, I guess. I'm not sure. But starting off with our grade 3s, we have 4 Mass Magician Harri and 4 Mass Phantom Harri. So at first we were running Mass Phantom Harri as like our default ride, but it's kind of terrible to ride him because for some reason Bushiroad made his on-stride skill a Soul Blast instead of a Counter Blast, or like instead of some other cost. But Soul Blasting out cards in Pale Moon is kind of terrible because you want to have a big selection of cards to choose from. So when you have to Soul Blast out important cards, like, it really hurts. So you have Mass Magician Harri. It has a Generation Break 2 ability. That says when this unit attacks the Vanguard, choose a card from the soul, call it to rearguard, and it gets plus 3,000 power. So that's when you're not able to stride and you've already gone past Generation Break 2, or you're at Generation Break 2. Then you have a stride skill that says during your turn when your G unit strides, you can counterblast 1, soul charge 1, and that's another thing that differs from Mass Phantom 2. Like, Mass Phantom doesn't soul charge except for when you first ride it, so that's not going to carry you through like all of the options that you need. But yeah, you counterblast 1, you soul charge 1, and then you choose a card from your soul, call it to the rearguard circle, and that unit gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. And at the end of that turn, you put the unit back into the soul. So this is its Magia effect. Magia, for those of you who don't know, is Pale Moon's keyword, and Magia is basically you move a card out from the soul to the field, and then at the end of the turn, that unit goes back into the soul. So it's kind of like a hit and run type thing. Moving on to Mass Phantom Harri, we have 3 skills that it has. The first one is the Generation Break 2 ability that says counterblast 1 when your rearguard is put into your soul. You can choose a grade 3 with the Magia ability from your soul and put it into your hand. So basically what this does is if you're on Mass Phantom Harri, at the end of the turn when all your Magia effects start proccing and sending your cards back to the soul, your stride is gone at that point, and so you can do it the same turn that you stride. And when your stride goes back to the G zone and then your rearguards start going back because of Magia, you can counterblast 1 time and then move grade 3. Like, because since all of our grade 3s have Magia, like, it's basically just move a grade 3 from your soul to your hand. So pretty good ensure stride fodder. Like, I just wish that this was on this Harri and not this Harri, or that this Harri had a better stride skill. Its second ability is when it's placed on the Vanguard circle, look at the top 2 cards from your deck and put a card into the soul and put a card on the bottom. So kind of fuels your soul a little bit. But then the third ability, which is its Magia stride skill, as I just talked about a couple times, you soul blast 1 and you choose a card with the Magia ability from your soul and call it to the rearguard circle. And at the end of the turn, you put that unit into your soul. So not only does it soul blast, but you have to call a card out that has the Magia ability, and sometimes you want to call out like Dark Side Princess, Dreaming Pegasus, like so many different things that don't have the Magia ability. So it's not really great to ride in my opinion, but I guess it's okay if you have to ride as your backup. So we have 4 Dark Side Princess. This works so well with the GB8. It's basically another hit and run card. and it just says when this card attacks a Vanguard, you can choose to have this card gain 5,000 power or not, and if you do, then it goes into your soul at the end of the battle. So it hit and runs. I pretty much always use the skill, so I pretty much never like opt not to use the skill because it's just a waste in my opinion. And then you can always call cards like in the space where it was too. Then we have 4 Face Magician Lapin. Lapin has 2 abilities. The first one is a Magia ability. That is during your main phase. If you're Generation Break 2, you can counterblast 1. If you have a Vanguard with Harri in its name, then you choose a grade 1 card from your soul, call it to Rearguard Circle, and at the end of the turn, put that unit back into the soul. I'm pretty sure we never used this ability purely because like when you call out a board, like between Cat Knight and Boots, our starter, and Cutie Paratrooper, and then like Harry's on stride skill, like our field is mostly full most of the time, so we never have to use that. But we were really using it for the second ability that says when this unit attacks, if you have a Harri Vanguard, you soul charge 1, and then you check if that card has the Magia ability or not, and then if it does have the Magia ability, then you get plus 5k to this unit, and if it doesn't have the Magia ability, you get plus 2k. So still allows you a soul charge, very good, especially when you soul charge like Mischievous Girl, the Mirrorland or something like that, because you can get a card out of your deck that you want in the soul and also thinning your deck for triggers at the same time. Then we have 3 Dreaming Pegasus. Same thing. Dreaming Pegasus is when it's placed on the Rearguard Circle. If you're Generation Break 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and then put a card into your soul and put the rest onto the bottom. Allows you to thin out for triggers, and if one of them happens to be Mischievous Girl of the Mirrorland, it basically means that you can choose any card from your deck and put it into your soul, which becomes a really strong card and the more you use it. So we have 4 Stride Fighters, pretty basic. 4 Hoopmaster. Hoopmaster is a regular PG except for it having a Magia ability on top of it too. So its Magia ability is when it's placed on the guard circle. If we have a Hoopmaster in our drop zone, then if we're Generation Break 1 as well, counterblast 1, and if you do, we soul charge 1, and then we choose a card from our soul, call it to the front row rearguard circle, and then it gets plus 5,000 shield and intercept. So if we have like, this is what helps with the random soul charges and stuff, like if we have any one of these triggers inside of our soul, we can call it to the front row with Hoopmaster, and then it can intercept for a 15k shield, which is equivalent to a G Guardian. So it's very, very good defensively. We have 4 Cutie Paratrooper, pretty much a staple in the Magia Harri deck. It has a Magia ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard due to an effect from one of your Magia abilities, if you have a Vanguard with Harri in its name, soul charge 1 and choose a card not named Cutie Paratrooper, call it to the rearguard in the same column as it, and then the unit called gets plus 5,000 power, and then at the end of the turn, like all Magia abilities, it goes back to the soul. So basically this allows you to, like, since it doesn't make you call a Magia ability like Mass Phantom Harri, like you can call Dark Side Princess, Lapin, Dreaming Pegasus. Sometimes I even call Dark Side Swordmaster if I need hand. So you guys will see that in the playtest matches. We have 2 Unicycle Tumbler. We use this for our counter charge because I wasn't sure when I first made the deck how much I would be counterblasting. It seems kind of counterblast heavy, like on paper. So when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle from soul, if you're Generation Break 1, this effect can only activate if you're Generation Break 1. But when this unit is placed on rearguard from your soul, it gets 2,000 power. Then if it was placed due to the effect of a Magia ability, which is pretty much always, until the end of the turn, this unit gets a skill. And the skill that it gets is when an attack hits a Vanguard during the battle, this unit was a part of the battle. So if it attacked or boosted, then you can Soul Blast 1 and Counter Charge 1. So I think that this is a way better use for our Soul Blast than Mass Phantom Harri. Like, so if you're on Mass Magician Harri, you should be Soul Charging all the time. So you should have some quote-unquote useless cards that you can use for Unicycle Tumbler. Then we have 1 Cat Knight Boots as our starter. It has 2 Magia abilities. The first Magia ability is when it's in the soul and your Generation Break 1. When another unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, you can call this card a Rearguard Circle, and then at the end of the turn, it sends itself back to soul. And then when it comes out on the Rearguard Circle from your soul, then you can choose 1 card not named Cat Knight from your soul, and then call it a Rearguard Circle. And then at the end of the turn, that unit goes back to. So it allows you to do like a whole bunch of hit and run tactics. Like it pretty much allows you between this Cutie Paratrooper and Masked Harri with a Cutie Paratrooper, you can call an entire build or entire field from your soul for counterboss 1. So it's very good. Even though it leaves you in kind of an awkward place with your strides sometimes, because your strides call units too, and if you just call a full board, like, you won't really have much to do with your stride. But for our triggers, we run 8 crit, 4 Dark Side Mirror Master. It is the Harri crit, goes to the soul when the Vanguard attacks, plus 5k and draw a card. Poison Juggler goes, you can put it to the soul during the main phase to give plus 3000 to one of your Pale Moon units. Mischievous Girl, like we've been talking about, when she gets soul charged, like when she goes into the soul by any means, you can put it on top of your deck and then choose any card from your deck and put it into the soul. So basically, instead of soul charging it, it goes back to the deck and puts a trigger back into your deck that you regularly would have random soul charged and lost the trigger. When you put this into the deck, like, you get to choose any card, so it's like a toolbox, which is really good. Then we run 4 Psycho Magician Cult Hard, and Cult Hard is our new Fighters Collection heal trigger. When you go into the new Cult Hard as your G Guardian from this, you get to put this card into your soul. Moving on to our G Zone units, we have 4 Mephisto, one who tells the demise Mephisto. So Mephisto has 1 Magia ability. The Magia ability is choose a card from your G Zone and turn it face up. We're usually targeting itself. Until the end of the turn, this unit gets a continuous skill that says all of your units on the field get plus 1000 power for every Mephisto face up in your G Zone. And then you choose 1 card from your soul for every 2 cards face up with the Magia ability in your G Zone. Call them to separate rearguard circle. Those units get plus 5000 power. And then at the end of the turn, put the units called into the soul. So then we have 2 Lunatic Dragons. Lunatic Dragon is basically just another pressure card. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, you can flip Lunatic Dragon. So we only run 2, so when you use it, you flip itself. And then it gets a skill that says whenever your unit... hey guys, sorry my camera cut for whatever reason. But yeah, we were talking about Lunatic Dragon. Lunatic Dragon is, you know, like another pressure card, like I was saying. And then when your units, it gives it an ability when you use the skill. When your unit's placed on the rearguard circle from your soul, that unit gets plus 2000 power until the end of the turn. So it makes all of your cards that come out from the soul for free that turn, like, gain plus 2k, which is not that big of a deal. Like, it would be a big of a deal, I think, if it was like 3k or 5k. Or something, but it's only 2k, so it's not that big of a deal. Then it has a Generation Break 3 ability, which is the main reason why we're using it, which says during your turn, if you're Generation Break 3, this unit gets plus 1 critical. So every turn after the first stride, this card is critical, so pretty good. We run 2 Fairfield. Honestly, my favorite stride in like the entirety of Pale Moon, because this card is just about recycle and, like, I don't know, I like recycle cards. But it has a Generation Break 3 Magia ability that says counterblast 2 and choose a card from your soul and drop zone and put them into the bottom of your deck in any order. So since it just says choose cards, you can choose triggers, which is kind of rare for card effects to let you select triggers instead of normal units to return to your deck, especially G cards. So it does allow you to pick a card that you've random soul charged, or like let's say that you use the Harri crit from your hand, then you can Fairfield it back into the deck, and you can also get one from the drop zone as well. So let's say that you've G-guarded already, you can put a heal trigger back to your deck. So that's like so powerful. I actually had a game which I forgot to record, but I actually like 6 damage healed 4 times on the guy because I kept Fairfielding heals back to my deck, and my deck was really low. So he was like really astounded. But yeah, after you do that, that's the cost. So you choose a card from your soul, call it to the rearguard circle, and until the end of the turn, it gets plus 10,000 power and a critical. So this card becomes really good to withstand triggers and critical triggers because you have a rearguard that's already huge with a critical. And instead of like normally giving it to a Vanguard, like if they're at 4 or 5 damage, that means they have to block this rear guard and they have to block your Vanguard, hoping that you don't check a critical on your Vanguard if they're at 4 damage. And then if you get a stand trigger on top of that, you get to stand the huge unit with the crit. So it's a very pressureful card. You can even against control, you give an ability from Fairfield to the unit that's called, and if you Soul Blast 2, until the end of the turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and this unit cannot be chosen by card effects. So it cannot be hetero-rounded or, I don't know, Kagero, Denial Griffin, stuff like that. Like, you cannot choose it with effects, but however, you can also not choose it with your own effects, so triggers count as effects. So if you get like a stand trigger or a crit trigger or anything, and you try to stack it on that unit, it won't work because it counts as an effect, and the unit cannot be chosen by effects. But then you get to shuffle your deck, so the triggers that you just put back are shuffled in, and then at the end of the turn, you put the unit that you called out from the soul back into the soul. So then we have one of the GB8. This GB8 is pretty terrible in my opinion. Like, I wish that it sucked all the cards currently on the board into the soul and then you get to choose 5 and call. That would have been a lot more amazing. But basically the way that it is now, it's Generation Break 8. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, choose up to 5 cards from your soul, call them to separate rearguard circles, and then until the end of the turn, they get plus 5,000 power, and additionally they get turned into Abyss Dragons. So it's kind of random, like, honestly, that they get turned into Abyss Dragons because it has no relevance to Pale Moon. But until the end of the battle, this unit gets plus 10,000 power for every Abyss Dragon on your rearguard circle. Like, they could have easily made this card shove your entire board into your soul and then choose up to 5 units and call them out. And then for every Pale Moon unit on your field, it gets plus 10,000 power. Like, I don't know. It would have been a lot better that way, in my opinion. But I guess that would give it 50,000 power all the time, which maybe they didn't want. Because if your cards are not Abyss Dragons, and then it only like gives you power for each one that you call out from the soul. So maybe if you have low soul, like it's to punish you, something like that. We do run one Amanda as our first turn stride because I was using Mephisto as our first turn stride so that we could just flip. But honestly, Mephisto, like, first turn stride is just like really like low impact. Like, I wanted a more high impact first stride, so we went with Amanda after a while. So it was about 4 to 5 hours into of our 17 hours of testing. But yeah, when this unit's on hit, it has an on hit skill, on hit Magia skill that says when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, soul charge 1, so it gives you soul as well. Then you choose a card, call it to rearguard circle from your soul, and then it gets plus 2,000 power, and then at the end of the turn it goes back to the soul. So kind of like the best tactics to do with that first stride are using it with Darkside Princess, since Darkside Princess makes the circle that it's on empty every time after it attacks. Like, it gives space for new units to be called. We run 1 Sabreeze in case our opponent tries to gimp us. We run 2 Cult Hards and 3 Wandering Dragon. Honestly, the other G-Guards weren't worth, in my opinion. And Cult Hard is like, I don't think Cult Hard is that great in itself, because you have to have the 4 different grades, like 0, 1, 2, and 3 in your soul for it to gain its effect. It would have been better if it was like for every different grade that you have in your soul, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. Because then it would have made it a maximum of plus 20 shield. And then as well, like, you wouldn't have to be getting all or nothing type thing. So with this G-Guard, it's kind of like all or nothing, which makes it really difficult to build like a GB8 build around it, because sometimes you're not set up to use it properly, and you're just guarding for a 26, but you're flipping a G-Guard. So you want it to be a lot more high impact than that. So yeah, it's a 41k shield if we have grade 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, or sorry, 0, 1, 2, and 3 in our soul. And if not, it's just 26, which is kind of lame. Then we have 3 Jester, Demonic Dragon, Wandering Dragon. Wandering Dragon is pretty much like the best G-Guard that they have, in my opinion. When you place it on the guard circle, it allows you to soul charge 1. So you random soul charge, and then you choose a card from your soul, and you use it to guard. So it gets random triggers out of your soul. That's all I can say about it, really. It's like a 36k usually, because you're getting a random trigger to guard with out of your soul. If not, you can get like random cards out of your soul that you don't really want there, like stride fodders and all that stuff. Things that you don't really need. Like, yeah, there's not much more way to explain it than that. But yeah, moving on to the matches, we're opening our card fight area back here. Also, I don't know if some of you have checked out the new video endings, but yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think of that. I'm like really interested to know what people think of it, or what my supporters think of it, I guess. So there's this bug with area that says that our opponent's using more triggers than they are sometimes, even if they're not. So I know for a fact that this person wasn't using 17 triggers, but it told me that it was at the beginning of the match, so I guess just ignore that. He did accidentally draw a card when he's going first. And then I was asking him like why he drew 2, and then he said it's an accident. But he rides Mellum, and then he puts back Chrono Dran and calls it a turn. We ride, which is one of the things about Pale Moon. Like their early turns are kind of weak because they can't call their starter out if your starter is Cat Knight. It does pay off in the long run, in my opinion. But if you can't get the G-Break for some reason, like it becomes really bad compared to your opponent, because they just get a free card off of Forerunner and you don't. So he did try to use the Stride Fodder, and he can't use the Stride Fodder that's the Zodiac Time Beast Stride Fodder, because you have to reveal a Zodiac Time Beast grade 3. So yeah, I made him keep it just because we're practicing for like a real tournament. So yeah, he was thinking that in a real tournament he would get to put it back, and probably not. His opponent probably wouldn't let him. But we do attack with Dark Side Princess, and he checks a crit trigger, which is unfortunate because no matter what we check, like you see, we checked a crit trigger right there. We just had to attack into his rear guard, and it was kind of crappy. Even though if he didn't check a trigger, like we would have been able to force more out of him, or made him take a crit. So he decides to stay on grade 2, which is interesting. I guess he didn't want to ride Original Chrono Jet, but I don't think that it was worth doing it like that. But he does end his turn, especially since we didn't have a Stride Fighter here. We were really happy that he did that, because we were just able to Sabreeze with a card from our hand, and then our starter Cat Knight comes out and calls another card out. And so we instantly have a good attacking board off of doing Sabreeze, when we would have originally been in a really tight spot had he just rode to grade 3. We do check double critical as well, so we put him up to 5 damage, so that's pretty good early game. And then we attack him for 21, and then he guards with 2 10Ks. 2 of the cards go back to my soul because of Magia. He does choose to ride finally, and then he strides with 2 cards. He strides into a Metallica Phoenix, and then he calls History Maker, and then he attacks with History Maker and counterblast 1 to Time Loop Dran into a Mellum, I think. Oh no, he does Mesh Kia, that's right. So he does Mesh Kia, and I asked him if he was doing any more skills because I assumed that he would be using Chrono Dran, but he said no more skills, so I guess he didn't want to use Chrono Dran. He did draw a card off of Mesh Kia and give 4k to History Maker, so. And then he attacks with Metallica Phoenix. Metallica Phoenix flips a card in the G zone, and then time loops the Mesh Kia into a Delayed Blazer, I'm pretty sure it was. So yeah, he thinks that the Delayed Blazer gets +2, and I asked him if he wanted to use Skill of Delayed Blazer, and he says no. So I tell him that Delayed Blazer doesn't get 2k because it only gets 2k when another unit comes out from Time Leap, which is the whole reason that Delayed Blazer is usually 11 when it comes out. So I told him that was 9. He still didn't want to use it, and so he put it back down to 9. So I'm like, weird decision. But I just decided no guard. He does check no triggers, and I don't check any damage triggers, and he attacks my rear guard, which I am not willing to let go, so I guarded with a crit. I do stride, and my hand right now is like very defensive. Like if this were a normal deck where I had to play units from my hand, I'd be kind of sad because I wouldn't have an offensive. But this is like one of the few good things about Pale Moon, in my opinion, is that like they can call like almost an entire board from just striding. But basically what we're talking about here is he tried to put back the grade 2 Delayed Blazer and get Mesh Kia, and then put back Mesh Kia and get Chrono Dran. But I was telling him that it doesn't work like that. Like if you time leap a time leapt unit, then the first unit is gone forever, basically. And you only get back the most recent time leapt unit in a chain of time leaps, so to speak. But we do go into Jester Dragon. We flip Jester Dragon so that every card that comes out of our soul gets 2k. Then we call out a Darkside Princess from Cat Knights. They both get 2k. Then we use Harry's skill to Soul Charge 1, Counterblast 1, and call a card out, and it gets plus 7k because it gets 5k from Harry and 2k from Jester. So we attack for 16. Darkside Princess forces 2 cards out of his hand. Then we attack with our other card. And then we Soul Charge the Sand Trigger. So like I was talking about, this allows us to set up for our Cold Hard, which is our G Guardian that requires the 4 different grades to be in our soul. So we put a grade 3 into our soul, if you guys didn't see. And then we attack with Vanguard, 2 critical. And then he does have a PG, which I didn't know that he had. So I was kind of happy that he had it, though, because it allows us to showcase the GB8. 2 cards go back to our soul from Magia. He does stride into next stage. And then he tries to put Mesh Kia to the deck, which I didn't know what he was doing, but then he tried to put it to the bind zone and search his deck. And so I guess he thought that he was on Chrono Jet G, but he's on original Chrono Jet, and I guess he forgot that. So I had to tell him that he couldn't do that. And then he put it back to his deck and just looked at his deck for like a while. And like, of course, this recording is like sped up. But I was like wondering if like he was doing it on purpose or like, I don't know. But yeah, I guess it doesn't matter much. So he does attack for 12 into our Vanguard. And we get a trigger. And I thought that he was going to use TikTok Worker, but he didn't. So we G-Guard into Cold Hard. Our heal trigger goes into the soul, and then Cold Hard makes it a no pass because it's 46 plus our trigger. Or with our trigger, I should say, it's 46k shield. So on a 26k, it's no guard. And then he checks a Chrono Jet, that random grade 2, and a PG. So he discards 3. And then he doesn't know how to put back the Chrono or the next stage, I think. So I had to ask him what he was doing because like he didn't even put back the next stage, and then he tried to like do something to Mesh Kia. So I was kind of like weird, like this guy must be new or something. But yeah, so he did say that he was lagging, so somehow that prevents him from putting next stage back to his stride zone, even though he was doing all the other motions. So he was just saying to simulate as if like he's on regular Chrono Jet 16k. So I decided to G-Guard with Cold Hard again. 1, because I wanted to no pass him, and 2, because I wanted to showcase the GB8. Then he checks 2 cards, and then he gets a stand trigger, so he stands Mesh Kia and attacks my rear guard, which I happily let go. We draw a card, and we stride into Delore Kimberly. Then we call Cat Knight, and we use Cat Knight to call Darkside Princess out. Then we counterboss 1 to call Dreaming Pegasus out. We use Dreaming Pegasus skill to look at the top 3 and put a Unicycle Tumbler into our soul. So we attack for 9 into his rear guard. Then we attack for 14 into his Vanguard. And he could have guarded it, but I guess he saw the whole thing coming with Delore Kimberly. I did keep going just to show you guys what it would have looked like. But he did leave the game already. So we would have attacked for... right now we're 31 on attack. And then we call out 4 cards. So our Vanguard gets plus 40k. so it would have been like 71 or something. We checked 3 cards, one being a stand trigger. We stand our starter, and then put the rest to Darkside Princess, and then we would have attacked for 28 and then 38. So he definitely would have been dead, like even if he checked a heal trigger as his damage tech. So I mean, the Pale Moon GB8 is like it's only okay in my opinion. Like I don't like how it works, but I do it for you guys. But yeah, we're opening up our second Harri GB8 profile here, or not profile, but match. So we're playing actually the mirror, which is pretty interesting because like almost never do I pair up with Pale Moon users on area. But this person attacks me, gets a heal trigger. I damage check a PG or a grade 3, which I desperately need a 2 and a 3 because my hand is all 1s and 0s, which is like really crappy. But my opponent attacks me, I no guard, and then thankfully I draw a grade 2, but then I drive check a grade 1, so I'm like, oh my god, I need a grade 3. So then my opponent like rushes the crap out of me, and then uses 2 Harri crits to draw more cards, also checks a stand trigger. So then for my damage check, I check a grade 3, and then I G-assist and don't get it. And this is kind of like, I'm showing this match to like show what it's like to have to play a deck when you play 8 crits and 4 stands, like no draw triggers. Like nothing helps you recover. So if you get like a bad hand, like you might be pretty squashed from that point. So my opponent does decide to Sabreeze me here. So then they Soul Blast to call out Cutie Paratrooper. They use Cutie to call the card out. And then he attacks me for 14, then attacks me for 16, calls another card out. Then he attacks me with Seabreeze. I'm lucky, I guess, that he didn't check any triggers, but even so, like, I damage checked a grade 3, so I was like, oh my god, this game's over. So, then I G-assisted again to try to find a grade 3, and still didn't find one, probably because most of them are in my damage zone. So we just did what we could and called 2s and hoped they used Cocky and no guarded and that we checked a crit or something, but honestly we were like beyond dead, so I kind of just gave up at this point. But yeah, he had multiple attacks here. We just took it just because like we were gonna die anyway, so it wasn't like a huge deal. Like just showcasing what happens when you brick in that deck. Like some decks are more forgiving than others when you brick in them, and this is one of those decks that it's like not at all forgiving if you happen to brick with the Pale Moon Harri deck. So moving on to Harri Game 3, which is our last one for this video because this is literally at the 16-hour mark when I was playing this. So I was like, no matter what happens in this game, like this is the game that I'm recording to put on there. So we do start off pretty good. We're like rushing him pretty hard. He's playing blasters. He does go into Blaster Blade Spirit and attack our rearguard. He doesn't proc the Wingle Brave, which I was pretty surprised off of it. But then we attack him and we check no triggers, but he checks a draw. So I don't know if you guys saw because it's going way too fast, but he's already gotten 3 draws like this game, which is kind of ridiculous. But he strides into Fides, which is kind of a weird play because like sure they can run Fides, but like if they do, it's like more optimal to use it when you're actual Generation Break 3 because they usually use it to retire one of their opponent's rearguards. And then also you played Starhope Trumpeter and Little Tactician Marin and didn't call anything off of them, so it's actually just like wasted. But yeah, we take this rearguard attack, we guard 1, and then we take his Vanguard, so he has a lot of PGs in his hand. And he chooses Wingle Brave to get a new Lu. We stride into Amanda. We call out Cat Knight of Boots, then we call out Cutie Paratrooper. We use Soul Blast 1 and call out Dreaming Pegasus. Then we use Dreaming Skill to look at the top 3. And then we put all of our cards back because it was 2 heal triggers and a PG. I strictly remember that. So we use Harry skill to counterboss 1, soul charge 1, and call a card. So we call the crit trigger. And then we attack his Vanguard. We use the crit trigger just in case we get to call a card off of Amanda, which we don't because he does PG us. Our cards go back from Magia and we end our turn. He does stride into Myriad Soul Savers, so this is like really weird, like all over again. Like I was expecting Gancelot having to block a threat or something, but maybe he's not using the GBT11 cards. Maybe like I don't know what's going on basically with him. I don't know if he's new. I don't know because I didn't know this person that I played. So he does Myriad Soul Saver, giving 5k to his whole board, and I no guard his Vanguard. He does check no triggers, which allows me to fortunately just be able to like body block one of the attacks on the side, because it would have been pretty awful in my opinion if I had to PG both. So we do go into Mephisto. We call a Dreaming Pegasus again off of our full board tactic, and then we put the stand trigger into the soul from Dreaming Pegasus, so we get to just put any card into our soul. The card that we choose is Lapin. So we use Mephisto, and I was going to call Lapin, but I decided to call Darkside Swordmaster again, just because I wanted more hand, because this is not a very good defensive hand right now. So in case he does do something super good, like I want to be able to have cards for that. But we just ended up drawing a Swordmaster off of the Swordmaster skill. So he doesn't stride, which is interesting because he had the grade 3 Lu, but he chose to call it to the board, I guess, to recycle. Then he tried to counterblast 2 to kill my cutie Paratrooper, so I guess that's when I knew that he was new to this deck, kind of, because Blaster Blade has always been, when it's on the rearguard circle, kill a grade 2 or higher. So he tried to kill it. I did 2 to pass him, which I guess one could call kind of risky with my huge hand. Like, maybe I should have just no-passed it, but he didn't get the 2 to pass, so it didn't really matter. And then I was telling him to put his grade 1s back to original power, and he didn't understand what I meant, because the 7Ks went to 12K from the Myriad Soul Saver turn, so he never put them back to their original power, which means that this should be attacking for a 10K block when it's actually attacking for, or it's attacking for a 15K block, but it actually should be only a 10K block. So when he, when I told him to put back down the sorry guys, my mind blinked for a second. I'm like really tired of playing this deck for like 17 hours. But when I told him to put back the cards, the grade 1s, back to original power, he just quit the game. So assumingly from there, like based off of his hand and his damage, and the fact that like I was gonna guard this with a 10K and guard the other column with a PG, and then I was gonna stride next turn and go into a 4 board for free. I was probably gonna go into the Jester with the crit, so he was probably gonna be in a really rough situation or a losing situation. So I just assumed, like based off of that, I would have won that game, but there's no way to really know because he didn't continue playing the game. But yeah, I'm sorry that the video ends like that, but yeah, I did play this deck for 17 hours, wake up at 5 a.m. Only for like all of the builds to fail that I was like thinking of in my head. So it's a pretty uneventful day, to be honest. But tomorrow is Gear Chronicle, so that will be super simple to make. And so yeah, that has been the Pale Moon GB8 video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to check out our description. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the video down below. Thank you guys so much for the support. And with that being said, it has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.